Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 354 of the AwardsWatch Podcast. I'm your host today, Sophia Ciminello, and joining me, we have Erik Anderson,
Hello, hello.
Ryan McQuade,
What's up, homies?
and Mark Johnson.
Hi, everyone.
Ciao a tutti. Today, we'll be talking about the Venice Film Festival lineup, a few other film festival lineups that have been coming in throughout the past week. We've had a few announcements here and there. We don't have complete lineups from TIFF and the New York Film Festival yet, but we did get some announcements there. We can have a conversation about the festival lineups, how we feel about them, and then we will be sharing our first round of Oscar predictions as a group. I think we're all really eager to dig into those. So we will be going through our two screenplay categories, Best Director and Best Picture. But to start out, I think before we get into that, let's go to our big announcements that we've had. I think we can start really with Venice because that was this morning's big announcement in typical Italian fashion, and I can say that because of my name. It was a very long announcement. It was about an hour going through all of the different sections. I do applaud them for having a presentation where we can actually see the names of the films and the filmmakers and the run times, unlike the Cannes Film Festival announcement. But much like this podcast today, only one woman in competition for the lineup, which is a steep decline from previous years that we've seen, especially I think compared to last year. So, just to go through a few titles that we had, it had previously been announced that the opening night film would be Danny Boyle's Ink. I think there was a lot of confusion and speculation around whether this would be coming out this year, even. And now I think this movie is going to be everywhere. Some of the competition titles that I think are pretty exciting. We have Bucking Fastard from Werner Herzog, Look Back from Koreeda. This will be his second film of the year. Possible Love from Lee Chang-dong, returning after 2018's Burning. I know a lot of us are big fans of that film. Wild Horse 9 from Martin McDonagh. Primetime from Lance Oppenheim, starring Robert Pattinson, and Bunker from Florian Zeller, his follow-up to The Sun. This one not starring Zen McGrath, though. This one will have Javier Bardem, Penelope Cruz, Patrick Schwarzenegger. We will see. What do you guys think of the competition lineup? And then we also had some announcements from other sections too, like Joie de Vivre, the Bertolucci documentary that Luca Guadagnino is making. We also have an Oasis documentary. How do you feel about the lineups? Erik, we'll start with you.
I do agree. It was nice that they provided the visual accompaniment to the presentation. But yes, in classic Italian form, very long, very drawn out, which was kind of funny. My first thoughts on this lineup were I can't wait for Telluride because it's going to be a spectacular year. And
Mhm.
that's kind of what we grab to in looking at these festivals. Obviously, New York and Toronto provide specific designations, which give us a tremendous amount of information. So oftentimes it's less what's there and more what's not there that that gives us some kind of exciting details. I do think there's obviously a lot of really good titles. Certainly what the ones that you mentioned. There are some very high profile directors that are going to be there. Barbara Koppel, a huge focus on documentaries this year, really, really big. That Bertolucci doc is 7 hours long. Just needed to mention that. Speaking of Italian length,
Endurance
um,
tests. Yeah.
for
Hmm.
real. There is also their first ever fully AI film, which I can't imagine is going to go over too well there, at least from journalists, and it shouldn't. And then, as you mentioned, At the top, there are 20 competition titles and one woman, which is really out of the ordinary for them because this decade has had 5 to 7 out of a list of anywhere from 20 to 23. So, and unlike Cannes, it's not usually like we're going to see added titles later. So it's not a great look, but I think there are some fun titles to work from.
Yeah. And I forgot to mention who will be the queen of the Venice Film Festival this year, and that is Ellen Burstyn. She will be receiving the Golden Lion for Lifetime Achievement, and she has a short film and a feature film premiering there. So she will be the
Mm-hmm.
one of the shining stars of the festival. You mentioned, some films that aren't there and how, yes, that kind of, gives us an idea for what we will see at Telluride. Ryan, looking at the lineup, were you in a similar boat where you were thinking, I'm actually looking at what's not here, or I'm surprised by what's not here compared to
I'm
what is here?
I'm gonna be just we're this is the first awards episode of the new season. And so far be it from me to not be just consistently myself. That Venice
Here
lineup
we go.
stinks. It stinks. It's bad.
Does.
It is the first time probably in a very long time that I am not jealous about anything that is over there at Venice and us missing out on. Now, granted, we get to see all these films by the end of the year and we get to go to special screenings and they're at other festivals. But there is always this like, man, that hope, right? Of like something jumping over from Venice to getting there to Telluride. Now we can see on that opening weekend. If and most likely I think we kind of think and assume that Netflix is going to, after they picked up Ink, take this everywhere based off the TIFF designation, based off of this Venice opening night film. Like it'll be one that goes over to Telluride. That's not a surprise. I have to say, like, if the films stay the same way, if nothing else jumps over, we're gonna have maybe the best Telluride that I've been to in my entire time going in the last 5 years. And just on paper. Now, obviously, we have to see the films, so like that's a different.
Right.
But we've also seen the Cannes titles, so we know some of those that are going to pop over there as well, and those winners and whatnot. But I think that the films there are it's kind of laughable that this is what they got. It from the notable amount of things missing, and you mentioned them like
Yeah.
I always thought Cry to Heaven from Tom Ford was going to be a little bit of a stretch to get in this year. I didn't think that it was going to be ready because there was so quick of a turnaround. Behemoth is clearly not going there, which is awesome. And Artificial announced that, from Neon that they weren't going to do a festival run. So Luca has a massive presence there, but to have the 7 hour documentary and not that is funny. The Social Reckoning, which was highly considered as going to be a centerpiece of this, is not announced. And I think that the notable thing that we should all take from here is Netflix and the fact that we have spoke with Netflix over the last couple of years about their debuts at Venice and how those films have sometimes tanked in traveling over from Venice to Telluride and then to New York and Toronto and all those other places. I think that Fernando Morales' film Here Comes the Flood and Cliff Booth, both of them not even being announced today. One, I think Morales' film is just going to be dumped on the platform, but Cliff Booth seems like it's either going the way of the killer or they have plans for it later in the year in the festival run, which, I mean, then kind of pivots to what they think about Ink and that they have their film, they have that with the Bola Negra, and they're going to be battling themselves over that over the course of the season. Plus, they have other films that we haven't even gone into. But I think that this is a really boring lineup, and I would hate to have had to book a flight and go on those damn gondolas every single day to see an AI film and a 7 hour doc and a bunch of all this other stuff that just frankly I don't care about. And it's actually very interesting because I look at this as like Venice and Cannes. Their lineups were super non-big names and non-big glitz. And Venice in particular is big about red carpets and style and flash. And this is so low key for them. And you look at like what was announced at TIFF that we'll talk about, what we assume is going to be a Telluride. The North American film festivals are going to have a massive year this year. And I mean, shoot, even the New York titles that we'll talk about are probably going to be bigger premieres than some of these Venice premieres as well. So, because it feels like the same kind of stuff on par, and that's a 2.5 week festival. So I think Venice is in a flop era this year.
Yeah, it's one of the things too. I think, you mentioned Behemoth, Tony Gilroy's film, which will be released by Searchlight. Michael Clayton did Venice and TIFF. So I think there was some thinking maybe that it could do the same here. It could do Venice and then TIFF, or it could do Venice early and then jump to Telluride. But yeah, I don't know. I think Telluride is looking pretty good. We also, in getting some, and then I'll go over to you, Mark, but we also got some announcements from TIFF for the gala and special presentations. And there we saw Canadian premieres and premiere designations for films like Elsinore, starring Andrew Scott, A Long Winter, which is the new Andrew Hay film, The Debut from Jesse Eisenberg, starring Julianne Moore and Paul Giamatti, and Tender Loving Care, the new Mike Leigh film. None of those were on the Venice list today. So that leads us to believe that we will be seeing those in the mountains, fingers crossed. But yeah, I mean, I think that adds to a little bit of our feelings around the Venice lineup as a whole. Mark, what do you think about these titles, maybe in the TIFF selection, but then also the Venice lineup that we saw today?
Yeah, the Venice lineup, I echo what has already been said, but I went to two or three different websites after seeing the initial lineup, just thinking something's missing here. Like
Hmm.
it doesn't feel big enough, and so yeah, like everything indicates, it looks like Telluride is going to have a rather huge year. I'm thinking like 6 or 7 world premieres maybe at Telluride. Like
It might
it
even
looks
be
like a
it might
lot.
even
Yeah.
be 8 or 9.
It
I
might
mean,
even be more
based off
than
of
that.
all the
Yeah.
surprises.
Everyone's going to be
Yeah.
fighting for Friday night and Saturday night like crazy.
Well, I'll
Yeah, and
be
the
pushing it around like that. I'll be okay. Like, but yes,
Yeah.
you're right, Eric. The studios are going to be like, and especially for medallion time too, as well.
Well, and the patron screening this year is going to be crucial, as it always is at Telluride.
Hmm.
But making sure we get hopefully a world premiere this time as the patron screening.
Yeah.
But yeah, Toronto gave us a lot of clues, like you said. We have quite a few Canadian premieres, which basically means Telluride, I think, at that point, because otherwise it would say
Hmm.
North American premiere. So pretty much everything designated Canadian, I think we can look at as a Telluride play.
Yeah. And TIFF is interesting too because we'll get a lot of the Cannes Award winners and carryovers, and they'll have Canadian premiere designations too, so we can count on seeing those in Telluride. But I think with the Cannes titles and what we've seen from Venice this morning, it's going to be a really packed weekend at Telluride. TIFF also gave us news that we will have world premieres of films like Always Lalisa, Onwards and Sideways, Growth of the Soil, Misty Green, Paradise Lost, and What You Want. And I think their biggest world premiere title, really, that they released is I Play Rocky, which is the biopic about Sylvester Stallone making Rocky.
Can't
This
wait.
feels like a classic TIFF
Yeah.
crowd pleaser type of title.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do we think Donald
Yeah.
Trump will show up for that premiere because he gave him the Kennedy Center honor? I think
Okay,
that's
but listen, I don't know if the Canadians want him there
I don't
because
know.
last
Yeah.
year
Any
when I was at
cross?
TIFF, when I was at TIFF last year and they
you're
found out
right.
I was an American, they were like, "Are you doing okay?"
Yeah,
These two
no,
women in
for
the
real,
theater with me. Yeah.
for real. They're like,
Yeah.
are you all right?
Are you good? Enjoy your time here
I
with
just know
us.
I just know that man likes to ruin everything, so
Yeah.
that's why I
Well,
said that.
yeah. Understandable. Um, And then in New York, we got just a few clues about the New York Film Festival lineup. Our opening night film will be James Gray's Paper Tiger. That will be the North American premiere, so that will not be making its way over to Telluride. I think there were, we weren't as high on the film at
No.
Cannes, but there were a lot of New York critics who were really singing its praises. So I think it'll be interesting to see
It felt
how
like
this fares with the audience.
it was the perfect place for it because those were the
Of
people that were
course.
salivating the most after Cannes. And
Hmm.
but salivating over mediocrity does not make for a good opening night film. We had After the Hunt last year,
After the
so
hunt, yeah. I mean, that was a similar story,
this
right? I
isn't a Nickel
think
Boys situation
no,
or a
this
May
is this
December.
is or May December or an Irishman. This is
Yeah,
a very, very different story, I think. And
yeah.
then we also got news of the closing night film, which is Ava DuVernay's 14th. This is a world premiere documentary, and it has been 10 years since 13th premiered at the festival. So a good anniversary there for her. We will have coming announcements for NYFF this next week. And then also, I think our big TIFF announcement is August 4th, where we can expect to see maybe some other titles that weren't in that first initial group, like Fatherland, for example. That could be there. I think maybe Taika Waititi's Clara and the Sun. I wonder where The Social Reckoning is going. I know we're talking about this great Telluride, but I don't know. After not seeing it in the Venice lineup, I think it is possible that we will get it, but also there are rumors of reshoots, so
Yeah.
who really
Oh,
knows
they're
with
not
that
rumors.
one?
They happened last week.
Yeah, they
Both,
did.
yeah. I kind of want
I
Artificial and The Social Reckoning to open on the same day. I want them to open against each other.
That would be fun.
Do you
That would
think
be
that
fun.
do you think potentially because of the reshoots they might push the date back on the wide release of it? And then that could put it in potential play for other festivals? Because I'm telling you guys, that movie just sounds like an AFI movie written all over it.
Yeah, but
The
it's
social
opened
reckoning.
early in October.
I know. Which
So
yeah, so
it would
that
have
wouldn't
to
be the
move.
case. Yeah, it would have to move. So, but
Hmm.
I sense maybe like a like if they were smart because of these reshoots and not trying to rush and edit, not like that Aaron Sorkin gives a crap about that. That a November push might be the right move for it, but
Yeah.
alas, I think they might just be doing theatrical for it also.
Yeah. I think so. I think that's really possible. And you bringing up theatrical, no Digger here on this lineup for Venice, which I think also confirms that that will be just a theatrical play for Iñárritu and Warner Brothers.
Oh yeah, which is
Hmm.
honestly kind of surprising because when we heard the can decision to not have it, and when Terry was speaking there about that, he expected it to be. He was talking a little bit about that Digger was going to be a Venice play. I remember
Hmm.
him saying like, "Oh, it's not coming here because it's probably going to Venice," and Warner Brothers. I don't know. They haven't had the greatest box office year this year for themselves after last year, and they already got the influencers talking to crews. So it probably seems like they need this thing after a pretty crappy trailer for it to not go to film festivals and build up like a Bardo reputation. Like that's what
Hmm.
clearly derailed that to only one
Right.
nomination. So it's probably the smart move for them
Yeah.
to hold that.
I think so too. And that's an ongoing conversation I feel like people are having around whether or not to bring these types of, bigger Hollywood films to festivals because if the reception is really poor, then like you said, it could derail the box office. So I think we can put a pin in our film festival lineup conversation for now. I know we'll be talking about a number of these titles as we get into our first set of Oscar predictions. So let's start with adapted screenplay. Adapted screenplay last year, we had a really strong winner. I don't think we're going to have any mention of the Chicken Licken frozen food farm or haters, lunatics, punk trash in our winner this year. But we have some big adaptations that we have coming. So basically, I started thinking about these in two main groups and then just an other possibilities category. So the first, we have these big notable adaptations. So that's things like The Odyssey, Dune Part 3, or Dune Messiah. Project Hail Mary. We have a Sense and Sensibility remake. We also have an international and non-English language picks category. So these are films that are, I think, going to be strong. Whether they're strong outside of international feature or not, I think is a question, but they will be going to a number of film festivals throughout the season. Those are La Bola Negra, All of a Sudden, and Minotaur. And then we have a lot of other things that could come up. Things like The Invite. Ink, I think, is a major contender after really seeing that it's going to be popping up throughout the circuit. But Mark, I'll start with you. What do you think of the adapted screenplay category so far? And do you have any potential films that you think are definitely going to show up or that need to be on our radar?
Um, I think you named most of the strongest contenders there. I do have the Odyssey in there. I think at this point it's our front runner. I think that's pretty undeniable at this stage at least. And so screenplay is going to come with that. And I know there's some folks, depending who you talk to, that feel it's the weakest element. There's some that feel it's the strongest element. That it's
You're on a podcast with three people that think it's its weakest element.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. So yeah, I do think if it's not winning picture, I don't think without its screenplay. So I have that one in there. And then you named a bunch of the other strong contenders. And I think I don't know if you mentioned Elsinore, but I'm really curious about Elsinore. The more I look into it, I think that has potential to be maybe a sleeper at least at this stage. So everything's a sleeper, I guess, because most of these haven't been seen. But do you want my five right now, or what would you like? Sorry.
It's up to you. If you want to list your five, you can. I
Okay.
don't know if I don't have my five ready to go. I was thinking more like
Okay.
generally, but if you want to list your five, you're welcome to.
Well, okay. You named pretty much all five of mine. So I have the Odyssey, La Bola Negra, Project Hail Mary, The Invite, and Dune Part 3. Dune Part 3 is going to be the interesting film, I think, in a lot of categories this year, as it, competes with the Odyssey as the big blockbuster film. And will they look at it as um, similar to the Lord of the Rings, how the Lord of the Rings trilogy wrapped up and did very well. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to do the same. But it did get nominated for screenplay. No, it didn't get nominated for screenplay either year, right? So this would be its first screenplay nom. So that's a tricky one to put in, but again, I'm not quite sure at this stage what to put in that fifth spot.
Yeah. The first Dune got adapted screenplay, but that was
Did it?
it just as a nomination. But that was in the like Dune Palooza year. Like they loved the first one, and then it
Yeah.
went downhill for the second one. So I have had questions about this movie because the book is so strange. And I think, Denis Villeneuve could neuter that a little bit, make it a bit more palatable for people. But I don't know. I do feel like there is something to this idea of, now that the Odyssey is out, I think you can pencil it in as a possible nomination leader. What does that mean for something like Dune that's going to come along later that I think, for some audiences could scratch a similar itch, but I mean, the Odyssey is heading to $1 billion guaranteed, and it's by a filmmaker who has won Best Picture and Best Director before. So I do view these two movies in conversation with each other, really. Um, but I do think that I can see the Odyssey having broader appeal when it comes to the industry, especially because, I mean, if you could say, we've done this before with the Odyssey, we've had plenty of adaptations, right, of that story, but you can also say that with Dune, we just did this twice before. And that's always a worry, I think, when you are thinking about the Academy and what they like. Ryan, how do you see this category shaping up?
I'm much along those same lines with you, Sophia. I don't see the overdue narrative, and it's Denis Villeneuve's time. Denis Villeneuve is not Christopher Nolan. As much as he tries and attempts to be, he is not Christopher Nolan. And the industry loves Christopher Nolan. he's an industry game changer. He's the number one man on top. He's won Academy Awards. He's had multiple films nominated for Best Picture. Denis Villeneuve is a man that gets snubbed for his technical achievements, not Christopher Nolan. You know, Chris Nolan's biggest, you know, acting awards have garnered Oscars. You know, Amy Adams is known in the lore of Denis Villeneuve as the biggest snub of probably his career outside his Dune snubs. And in the Dune of Palooza, the year that you just said, which is a great name, I can't wait for the T-shirt for that. He couldn't garner a Best Director nomination in its first go round. Something that let me look at the notes. Peter Jackson did for Lord of the Rings, so those comparisons are fucking stupid. But then if you look at like you know, Two Towers, it had a dip. This isn't some grand conclusion of three novels. This is two books that has been stretched out into three. And just because he's going on to make a Bond movie doesn't mean that, like, you know, this is sort of this grand finale. And I mentioned on the Director Watch episode last week, I do think that there are themes that will be explored in Dune Part 3 that are also explored within the storyline of the Odyssey. And I think that people are genuinely more favorable from a technical aspect, from a crafts element, from the performances to reward the Odyssey more than Dune. And I don't think that that screenplay is going to get in there. I much could see the world where this is like a little bit like Avatar Part 3 more than it is Dune Part 1 or Return of the King. And every time we bring up Return of the King for like Wicked or other things in the past, those comparisons always die. Lord of the Rings is a one of one, and we have to stop comparing things to that. But I think in this category, Mark is right. The Odyssey is probably at the top of, and La Bola Negra, I think, is at the top of those lists. I think that La Bola Negra, this is actually after seeing the Odyssey and sight unseen on La Bola Negra, because I was not able to see it at Cannes. I think this is actually a great chance for La Bola Negra to win an Oscar here. I have Ink as well because I mean Netflix is going to battle itself like it always has. I think Project Hail Mary, because Drew Goddard is a previous nominee for the last time he did an Andy Weir film with The Martian. I think that's totally something to consider. Amazon's already starting to make the push on that with screenings in Los Angeles already for it. So expect them to have a big push for that. And I think that last spot is very wide open, but I kind of am not leaning the invite. Sophia's going to get very happy here for a second. I'm leaning Minotaur for that last spot right now because much like Jafar Panahi last year, even though he wasn't able to get in director and the film wasn't able to get into picture, it was able to get into the screenplay category. And I do think the international films have been doing a really great job of getting in there. Minotaur is going to be one of those films, especially because of its political conversations as well too with that film, be a very, very popular film, I think, along the festival circuit and much more palatable probably than the 3.5 hour epic of All of a Sudden, which is an incredible film, but I just don't see getting in. I don't think that The Social Reckoning or Cliff Booth or some of those films potentially you know could break through, but we'll see. You have to remember that that's a Quentin Tarantino script and an Aaron Sorkin script, and god damn it, they love him. They love both of those guys. They won multiple Oscars, and we don't know what the Sense and Sensibility adaptation is going to be like. We don't know if it's even going to be good or Amazon's priority, because they have other films, but it is their only film, I believe, in the running here, so it doesn't have to bump up against its original films, because Elsinore is a original screenplay, and of course Obsession is a original screenplay.
Oh, Elsinore's original?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an original screenplay. But I will say this
I hadn't
about
adapted.
Ink is that it's written by the author of the book, James
Mhm.
Graham, and this is a first-time screenplay, it looks like, for him. So that'll be very interesting for Danny
Mhm.
Boyle, because I wouldn't say like Danny Boyle's the best like writer in the world. And so he usually needs strong writing on his side in order for his projects to work for me, like a Simon Beaufoy or an Aaron Sorkin or an Alex Garland. A first-time screenwriter, that's keep an eye on that.
Yeah, I think the point about Minotaur is where I'm leaning to actually, just because I mean, yes, Hamaguchi is a previous, or yeah, Hamaguchi's a previous nominee here, so that could happen. But Minotaur the Academy likes Zvyagintsev films, and this one, I think, with what we have seen just so far with festival announcements, it could be Mubi's big push, especially after winning the Grand Prix and where they're maybe taking Fatherland or Coward or a number of other films that they have on their slate. Speaking of former winners, I also want to mention Being Human, which is Sean Hayter's follow-up to Coda. She managed to win adapted screenplay. I know I'm the one bringing that up against
It's so painful for you to bring this
Drive My
up.
Car and The Power of the Dog. So just something to keep an eye on. But Eric, yeah, what do you think of the adapted screenplay list?
Well, I was thinking, just listening to everybody and their choices, and obviously I have a lot of similar ideas, but I'm actually very high on the invite for a few reasons. There are not a lot of women-directed films this year that are going to be in real contention for Best Director, which is going to be a big change from how it's been this decade. But in this category specifically, there's been a woman writer or co-writer every year since 2017. So I feel pretty good about the invite as that movie's best chance for an above the line. I would love Wild to be in real contention for director, but I'm not sure that's really likely. So I think it'll do well here, and for me that goes alongside with the Bola Negra, the Odyssey, Inc. And then I do think it is a little open. Project Hail Mary, probably, but I don't know. I like the Minotaur idea a little bit more.
We can be a little hopeful right now. Like it's so early. I think we can think about some fun things. I like that with the invite. I think people love that movie too.
It's
And
very well written too.
I think it's a screenplay
Mhm.
movie too. Like it's one of those things where the writing is just so sharp. I think it's really well directed too, but I
Yeah,
think that's a little bit more of an uphill climb, like you said.
yeah.
So let's go to original screenplay now. So here, I think we can also think about some former nominees that we'll have in the category. We have Wild Horse 9 from Martin McDonagh, The Debut from Jesse Eisenberg, Behemoth from Tony Gilroy, Digger from Iñárritu, and Saturn Return, if this is coming out. Haven't heard much about it lately. Clint Bentley and Greg Cuidar, but I just have that here as an option. And then here, I think we can also think about some of our original and non-English language picks. I think Fjord is very strong here, our Palme d'Or winner. And then Fatherland, this could be it's I believe original, even though it's based on real people and real events. I believe it's an original screenplay. And then other possibilities, I'm very high on, I know some people think Obsession, this is a place for it, but for me, this is for Club Kid. That is my like fun pick.
It's interesting because I just moved Club Kid into my fifth spot this morning when I was
Oh,
looking at this.
really? Yeah.
Yeah,
I
because
would I would scream if
yeah.
that happened.
I took Behemoth out because I'm not quite sure anymore about Behemoth.
Really?
A little.
I
Why
feel much
is,
Yeah.
stronger about Behemoth than Club Kid here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
yeah,
feel like Behemoth could win this category.
I do too.
I moved it
Maybe.
No,
just outside.
Fjord feels like winter
Fjord feels
territory to
like
me.
Fjord's my number one, but if terms of Gilroy has a narrative, a former nominee, his love from his career is so
Yeah.
beloved as a writer. People both on our side of the fence and also in the industry love Andor. This has been a script that I anyone that's been talking about this script is saying it's phenomenal. I think that also it's like this giant love letter to music and to the movies and everything. So it on paper also feels like it too. I feel like that's the battle between Fjord, which is I think going to be so topical and is a film that we'll talk about in picture in a little bit is like where that fits for all of us. But I think it's very high up there, and so is Behemoth. And I think that those are those are the two, and I think the debut is like a close third with it, because I think based off that
Mhm.
trailer and the the love that A Real Pain got, and I think that this is going to have Oscar play for the actors, and it seems like a little bit of even like a step up, and it's also a musical too as well. So
Mhm.
that could be very original and very different for someone like Jesse Eisenberg. And then yeah, I mean those other two spots are very wide open. I would love if Club Kid got in. I think that that's one of the great films of canon of the year. I think that Elsinore is very much a film that could be there, and but then Sophia mentioned it. I think Obsession is a film that you have to keep an eye out for. I think that this is realistically to me more of a place that it could go. If its actress play ends up in Best Actress, I don't think she'll get into Best Actress. Not to spoil a future episode, I don't think that she will get into Best Actress. She has a better shot in, I think, supporting actress just because of the field there. And I think Best Actress is loaded this year. But if there was a place that they wanted to reward this film, which is a box office sensation, regardless of any of our opinions, I think that this would be the place. But I have it like in the like 8 or 9 spot right now, because I think just the pedigree of
That's where I
I
have it
would
too.
I would take a Martin McDonough at this point, or even
Yeah.
Inarritu, like, or people that are loving them. And I know Eric and I have heard kind of we don't know what Saturn Return is going to bring, but these
Yeah,
two, even when
my feeling from my conversations is that it's not happening this year.
Mm.
that might
That's what
be
I'm
the
hearing
case,
too.
but if it does end up showing up, these two have been nominated in the screenplay categories the last 2 years in a row. So that is something
Then they can
where.
be next year.
And exactly, they could be next year, or if it does come out this year, then then it does. Like, I don't know, we haven't heard anything permanent just yet. It's just feelings and rumblings,
Rumors.
but
Yeah.
and rumors.
Yeah. One thing I
Yeah.
think about with the two screenplay categories, though, is the names that we've mentioned are clearly going to get other nominations in other places. And one of these two categories usually features like a sole nominee for their film. It happens quite a bit. That could be where Obsession lands
Yeah,
Club
someplace.
Kid. We're
Or
manifesting
Club Kid.
I
positivity.
want it to
Club
be
or
Club
Kid.
Kid
Or the invite.
I
Or
There's a
the
couple
invite,
that I
or
yeah.
the
think.
invite.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
think
There's a
I have
couple.
to I think
24
about it
films.
in those terms too, not like
Yep.
being so locked into it that I force it, but it's something that I always consider.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But what
That's part
does,
of. Go ahead.
yeah, what does happen in what's been happening in recent years, I think if you look last year even, we have a smaller number of total films that receive nominations, and they receive a lot of nominations. There isn't this great spread, but I think if it does happen where we just get one here or there, it could come up in screenplay. I think even more likely than in an acting category.
Well, last year, 8 of the 10 films that were nominated in the screenplay categories combined were nominated for Best Picture. And I would say that right
Yep.
behind in the like 11 and 12, or like 12 spot, were probably Blue Moon and It Was Just an Accident, which were the other two, and also
Hmm.
received other nominations as well. We've kind of since May, December gotten away from the solo nominee in this category. And I think that has to do with like a lot of the screening requirements now. And I think a lot of I just think of parody. Like, parody is such a high thing when it, like you're mentioning, Sophia, like it gets down to like 10 films now, 12 films that are represented across all categories. And so it's very, very hard for a small film. But The Invite is one of the critically acclaimed films of the year. Club Kit was a smash hit at Cannes. It will play the festival circuit and hopefully do really well there. I expect it to probably be at New York as well too, and do really, really well. And but so that's where it probably hurts something like Obsession, or even because it's like, if you're adding all these things up, like, do these have other places it can get to? Because it feels very, very rare for something to break through, and it, special circumstances for some things, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So, I mean, $400 million might just be what you got as a prize and that's it, or it might be a benefit to them. And it also
Don
just,
Draper, that's what the money is for.
but it also just
Right.
depends on how Focus Features other films do as well too in the race. So
Yeah, I think that's very possible. I'll just say with the power of manifestation, Club Kid, I'm going for it. I think it can win the People's Choice at Toronto. Like I think this is a movie that can
Wow.
like do really well all season. So yeah,
I
that's
do,
what
I do too, because once
Yeah.
they get past the first 20 minutes, which is so,
okay.
yes, so gay, but just also so very specific to
Mhm.
the majority of, not the majority of people's lives.
Which
Well,
I
once
love
they get to the end,
yeah, and it hits them in
they're going to be like, oh, damn,
hits them in the
Yeah.
gut.
Mhm.
Yeah.
that's giving People's Choice.
I haven't
Yeah.
thought about what's going to win that. That's
It came to me just now.
The life of
I don't
Chuck is
know.
not gonna work.
I play Rocky.
I play
feels
Rocky.
like
Oh,
Yeah,
God.
like it was
I mean-
born for that.
I mean, Green Book
Yeah,
did win that award
that's-
before.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Mhm.
Yeah. Mark, you
That's
were going to
true.
say something about screenplay.
I forget. It was piggybacking on something Eric said. I forget what it was, but I'm surprised it didn't sound like Ryan. Do you have Wild Horse 9 in your 5 at the moment?
No,
Okay.
because I'm not sold on the film. I think this is going to be very Seven
Okay.
Psychopaths and not Banshees of Inisherin. And while I do like Martin McDonagh's work overall, I think that's not an Academy friendly film. I don't think that the movie's going to particularly be their strong horse in the race. I think that they have other films, and and then also like the fact that I don't know, maybe it being like the lone big premiere, it feels like over at Venice is like a warning sign of like, should we take this seriously
Look,
as well?
I just don't know what to think about this movie because, like
You've
I
seen it
mentioned
like
on my
900
show,
times.
I have seen this trailer approximately 500 times, and I just need to see the movie at this point because I can't see this trailer anymore. But what I will say is that when Barbera was talking about this movie this morning and doing the announcements, he was very, very excited about it. Obviously,
Yeah.
you have to be when you're doing an announcement,
The only
but
stars are going to show up.
he did connect it with, he talked about it, relating to political events, talking about Pinochet. So I think there could be something there that makes
they're
it
not
feel, a bit more serious than what we get in the trailer, which feels very like, I don't know, leaning into like the buddy comedy
Hopefully it's
farce
like an
territory.
Ishtar vibe. That would be kind of yeah.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I love that. Sorry, we did the Elaine May series last year, and I'd be like, ooh, that would be interesting. But I don't know, just off of what we've seen so far, I was not impressed with that trailer. And it doesn't mean that I don't like McDonough. It just like I think other films are stronger. And I think
feeling-
Fatherland is something that
Yeah.
that could. I mean, Pavel Pawlikowski is someone that like sneaks in to these races, and
It's also about writers.
Yep,
So
that's the other thing too. So, and then of course, like if the New York contingent gets their way, there's Paper Tiger, and that trailer, and we don't know what I see on the doc here, A Place in Hell. I think that's the Chloe DeMont
the
film.
Chloe DeMont film.
If
Yeah.
that ends up being
Neon
something,
has so many
they
things.
have
That's
so
where
much
I'm just, it's like, is this coming out this year or is this going to be
Yeah, that's Christmas.
held? Yeah, but it just, I don't know why. I just am like, is this going to get pushed just because I haven't heard a peep? But I mean,
I think
we'll
they're
see.
just holding
Just
it.
waiting?
It's
Yeah.
not gonna be a festival player. It's really just for box office. It's got a slightly trashy vibe to it. Positive. That's a very complimentary thing.
Mhm.
We
That
love
can
that.
do
Always
really
complimentary for
well
me.
over the
Mhm.
holidays.
Oh yeah,
Like The Housemaid.
definitely. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like
Well,
Baby
hopefully
Girl
better
came
than
out
that.
around Christmas.
Yeah, I want it to be like The Housemaid, but
Yeah.
like I mean, good. I
But
like The
good,
Housemaid,
yeah.
but I want it to
Listen.
be good.
listen, I know this is early on in the award season, so I'm just going to say this. If all these people out in the world are going to start pushing Obsession, we should push the real film that should be getting in this original screenplay category. Nominate The Sheep. Nominate The
That's
Sheep
adapted.
Detective. Is it adapted? I thought it was
Adapted.
original.
Are you
Yeah,
talking about
no.
the Sheep
Adapted.
Detectives?
That is a
Yeah.
book.
Nominate
I
it.
love Are you talking about the Sheep Detectives or not?
Yeah.
The Sheep
Yes.
I just
Detectives.
saw that. I loved it. I just
It's
saw
so
put it in.
good.
It's so
Yeah.
cute.
It's
I don't know if you're
no.
kidding or not, but
No,
I
I'm
love
not
that movie.
kidding. Put that movie in.
Yeah, it was
But
such a cute movie.
I didn't know if it
Anyway.
was original or not. It just sounds like such a crazy idea. I didn't think it was from a book.
Oh
but-
no, it sounds like a kid's book, like to a degree that's
yeah,
almost
it definitely does.
But
comical.
it sounds like an executive though being like, "Hey, how do we capitalize on Paddington?" So that it's also a little bit of that as well, But yeah, give me those sheep. Like move over, Rocky. Give me the sheep.
On that note, I think we should head into Best Director. So for director, we have some former winners who are in play this year. Christopher Nolan for the Odyssey, two-time winner Iñárritu for Digger, Danny Boyle for Ink. We also have former nominees. I mean, there are a lot of men on this list. Like you said, Eric, it's very male heavy. Denis Villeneuve, importantly, not nominated for Dune though. I had to put an asterisk on that. He was not nominated for Dune, so
Can
we
you
just
say
have
that a
to.
little louder, Sophia, for some people out there that don't know how to like comprehend that?
Denis Villeneuve was not nominated for Dune or Dune Part 2. He could get nominated for this one, but he was not nominated for those films. We have Martin McDonagh for Wild Horse 9, Tony Gilroy for Behemoth, Pavel Pawlikowski for Fatherland, Ryusuke Hamaguchi for All of a Sudden, David Fincher for the Cliff Booth movie. And then I think we also just need to talk about, before we get into like the long list of people, I think we can talk about all of those too, but the Cannes darlings and prize winners, I'll call them, because I think we have to look to Cannes because this branch in particular is not afraid to go their own way and they will pick international films and directors. So Christian Mungiu is near the top of my list for Fjord. Los Javis for La Bola Negra. They won Best Director at Cannes alongside Pawlikowski. And then also, if they love Minotaur, Andrei Zvyagintsev, I think this is another play that movie could possibly make, but it's going to get very, very crowded. And so I'll just stop there. I think we can get into some other possibilities that you guys maybe have. But Eric, I'll go to you first. What do you think of Best Director so far this year?
I mean, it's just what you said. It is such a wild melange of some major names with newcomers that absolutely can and will break through because that is what we've seen in the last decade. And even if the DGA is still pretty rigid about how they choose or don't choose to nominate non-English language directors, the Academy does, and they absolutely will.
Mhm.
So, I mean, like that's where I can see, Project Hail Mary getting the DGA and absolutely missing at the Oscars in favor of any of the Cannes winners that you mentioned. But yeah, I'm not counting on Villeneuve suddenly making it in. The film would have to be just of a level of quality that surpasses the previous in a way that makes the people that didn't vote for him the first time suddenly take notice. And why would that happen? That's just not really how it happens.
Yeah.
I don't have really any faith in Fincher making it in here, or Hamaguchi. Honestly, I'd love it. I just don't think that is going to be able to make itself a neon priority the way that they
Eric, I got a question
maybe
for
even
you.
want to.
Will Tarantino vote for Hamaguchi on his ballot over Fincher, given some of the stuff in All of a Sudden?
I I I couldn't tell you that.
Yeah.
Oh, now I know what you mean.
But
I hate
yeah,
this so much.
I know exactly what you mean too. If
Touch your toes, folks.
I was gonna say, is there a lot of feet in the?
Yeah, there's
in
some
the
feet.
movie?
Yeah, there
that-
is.
Great,
There's
great stuff
okay.
with feet.
It's great stuff.
There is a lot of
but
feet stuff.
It
but
did kind of cross my mind a little bit.
wow. Okay. Well, I wasn't really gonna go there, but here we are.
Here we are.
Yeah, it's where I want to lean is to largely these non-English language film directors. I don't know. Recent history just has given us too many details that provide that to us. But as we mentioned, the absolute dearth of female directors and possibilities here because of that does elevate both Olivia Wilde for The Invite and Georgia Oakley for Sense and Sensibility. That would one of those two, because it would probably only be one of those two, would have to really be
Sean Hayter.
That's the one I
yeah,
Sean Hayter.
Or Sean Hayter
has returned.
They like to validate. They like to validate their prior choices sometimes.
I
guess. She
guess.
wasn't nominated for the film they gave. Right? She misdirected.
She didn't get into director.
She
though.
didn't get in. If she
Sophia,
did,
so
she probably would have won.
It's scary.
She missed director and it won picture, so I could see them if they,
I can also
that was a film though. That was a film that, as we saw in the season, in that first phase, had that extremely modest 3 nomination total, and it was the second phase that everything kind of turned around for it. So there's a certain, I think, disadvantage for being human in that, and not an advantage. It's also been a really, really long time.
It has. Yeah.
I was going to say, I also think 2 things against it. I think one, being the Tiffany opening night film, it's usually historically not always the greatest thing in the world. And then the other thing is, I think there's going to be, you mentioned like, oh, they like to validate their picks. There's also going to be a ton of people with venom already out for this thing because of the CODA stuff, because of, I do think that there might even be an unfair treatment of it.
Like critics, or
I think so.
I mean, not Academy members, right?
I think that there's going to be a ton of people who will be like, "Oh, this sentimental bullshit," and try to kill it before it even starts. So
it could be like Rental Family.
Yeah, it could.
Yeah, something like that.
It could. We don't know how disability activists are going to respond to it. There's a lot of potential, or it just kind of sails through.
It was
and
something we talked about way too much early on, and then we never talked about it again.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are predicting Ruth Madeley and Mark Ruffalo, so that's building a case.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people.
You're one of those people, Mark? You think they're going to validate
I have Ruth. I don't have Ruffalo, but I do have Ruth.
Yeah. I just mentioned her because I personally don't think this is a director's branch type of pick, sight unseen at all, knowing what they go for. And that instead, like you were saying, Eric, has me swinging back to the Cannes movies. Like, I think you can, yes, we start with Christopher Nolan. I think that makes sense. I think that's the right place to go first. We've seen that movie. We know how people are responding to it. But then I think you go to, you pick 2. I think Manju is first for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I think you look at Los Javis too.
Absolutely. That's my 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. And then 4 or 5's where it gets dicey.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the interesting conversation, because I really hate doing this, but I'm going to put myself out on a limb. I think that those are as close to locks as you're going to get.
Oh, absolutely. Right now, completely.
I think the rest of the season, people are fighting for 2 spots. Clip this, listeners, and come back to me, and in a couple of months or whatever. But I think that I just think that, one, I think we're on the path of Christopher Nolan winning his second already. I think that the response for this, I think he's so beloved in the industry. I think that, and I think the film's going to cross $1 billion, and people think that, a lot of people, not us, maybe Mark, I don't know if Mark thinks this, but a lot of people think this is even better work than Oppenheimer.
No.
There's not a recency. No. Well, there doesn't seem to be a recency bias with this, as opposed to to other directors that have won and then made their follow-ups. And so I think that you can totally lock him in. I think Manju is for sure lock. He's he's a director that they've loved his films in the past and nominating it. It's his second Palm. That movie is very topical. He's going to be doing a lot more Q&As. It's a much more different circumstance, I think, than Panahi last year. And then
Very different.
And then
Yeah.
Los Javis, they're going to be the discovery. They're going to be the new people on the scene. They're going to do all the Q&As as well. Netflix will have them everywhere along with Danny Boyle, and it makes total sense for them to be there. I do.
Yeah, I think Danny Boyle is probably fourth.
I would say Danny Boyle and Tony Gilroy.
I say
for
Tony
me.
Gilroy for me. I think that film is, Don't Count Out Focus Features. Or no, that's Searchlight. I'm sorry,
Searchlight.
I think
they're roaring back.
They're gonna have a massive bounce back year for themselves. And then I mean, I kind of with Sophia, like weirdly, like Pavel Pawlikowski is right there. I think that you can't, regardless of what I think about Digger and how that trailer looks, like they love Iñárritu and they love to validate him any chance they can get. And
well, not really.
Not Bardo because but
okay, well that's
but
Bardo...
he's a 2-time winner, and this is very much more in the wheelhouse of Birdman and The Revenant more than it is Bardo, and they love the shit out of those films.
So. About The Revenant, but yeah, Birdman, sure.
I mean, it's reminding me of like we talked about, like Don't Look Up, like Ruben Östlund, like those types of films, which they Yorgos Lanthimos, like they love that, so we cannot count him out. Bizarre, yeah.
I'm gonna go out on like a little bit of like a what I would love to see, and that is I would love to see, because, and I don't know if the film's gonna be any good, but it's gonna be a late breaker again, but because he's such a technical craftsman and Nosferatu overperformed, I think Robert Eggers is someone to keep an eye out if the movie is good. Yeah, if it is something, if it's, we know those crafts are going to be insanely well done, and so it could be. We haven't had a surprise director nomination in a long time, like somebody like that. But that movie's a hit again. He's a bit iffy with press, but I think that's more. He's somebody I would consider more in this than like an Aaron Sorkin or even like a David Fincher. To be honest with you, I don't think Cliff Booth's going to do anything. It's going to be a great movie that I can't wait to see, because I love Fincher, but like I don't think it's going to be a player in all this. And I mean, maybe it's Eisenberg, something subtle like that, and it's
they struggle with that though,
But I think The Odyssey is the big budget blockbuster, and I think that because it's so overwhelmingly positive and people love Nolan so much, I think that's going to. I don't think that Dune, Project Hail Mary, or possibly even Digger are going to be able to match it or have matched it. So
it is funny that Nolan had to go through like 10 years of that's what the money's for before they turned the corner on him.
I mentioned it in the breakdown because I did a massive breakdown of the Oscar chances for The Odyssey, and it's on the website with an insanely great photo from Eric for the piece, which is wild. But I talked about how it very much mirrors how the Academy looked at Spielberg for so many years. And when he finally started making those serious, dramas that the Academy loves, even on a massive spectacle, that's when they really took him seriously, as opposed to like Indiana Jones and Jaws and stuff that they thought that was more popcorn stuff. So I think, and also like there's nobody else in the world that matches him in terms of anticipation and name brand recognition. He's the Directors Guild of America president, for God's sakes. It's I mean, regardless of what I think of the film, you take that out of it and look at it, and it's no denying that, Nolan feels like someone that's going to win too. It makes sense that it's probably going to be for this.
I hope not.
So I mean, I don't want it. I'm with you, Eric. I don't think he should win for this, but
I think it would be fun if Drag Race Spain judges won Best Director.
I'm telling you. I think it's closer to possible than not.
I don't think
you guys convinced me. You convinced me about, how do you say it, Manju?
Manju,
right?
Yeah. Manju, yeah.
You guys convinced me that I probably should have had him in. I took Villeneuve out, which pains me, but I get what you're saying, and it's hard to predict that. But the one that I think it seems like, and this is just from what I'm observing, it seems like the one I'm much higher on than you guys right now is Wild Horse 9. And what are your thoughts on Martin McDonagh here for director? I don't know. I don't think we've really talked much about him.
I mean,
Yeah,
obviously inconsistent because he
Yeah.
didn't make it in for 3 Billboards,
But he
and
made it
then
in for Banshees.
he did for Banshees. So
That's what it is for me. It's that, and then it's also Searchlight. I mean, Searchlight is, they can be great. They can do really well, but I think like I want to wait and see how Behemoth does and how Wild Horse 9 does because I think because Mark, you seemed to flip it on you. You seem down on Behemoth,
I am a
and we're a little
little.
up on Behemoth.
I loved the trailer. I have to be careful what I say, so I'll just say I'm higher on the Wild Horse 9 side with I think the cast. I think it feels like it would be something that would be broader with writers and actors helping get it across the finish line. I think Wild Horse 9 is one of our strongest contenders, honestly. I might have it number 2 if I reevaluate this. And
yeah, see,
I'm
and
a little,
I've had it
I'm much
high
higher.
this season so far, and for my next predictions, it's going to drop a lot.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think that's controversial though to say, Mark,
No.
with the actors, because it's
Okay.
like you have Sam Rockwell, John
Yeah.
Malkovich,
Yeah.
like you have them, and then you have Pedro
Johnny
Pascal
Parker
and Will
Posey.
Arnett, and
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
on the
there are
other
a lot
side.
of-
So it's if you're comparing them,
Yeah.
people who have been around, who have,
Yeah.
it's been proven that the Academy likes or loves them, versus people who haven't been there yet.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely. I mean, I have Behemoth number 11 right now in my picture predictions, which I know we're not on picture yet, but so I'm not completely out on it. I wanted to make room for,
Mhm.
which we will talk in a second, but I wanted to make room for I Play Rocky. I do think
Oh
the
my,
TIFF, I do think the TIFF Audience Award winner situation, I think it's going to be in major play there. And aside from what was it, Life of Chuck, which
yeah.
Mhm.
put an asterisk by because it wasn't released in the same year that it won. So I do think there's going to be something to that. I'm middle of America white dad, but I loved the hell out of
You
that trailer.
are?
Yeah, I'm totally that guy. But that trailer floored me. I was super excited after watching that, and I have a feeling there'll be a contingent. It's the F1 of this year, perhaps. It's the one that dads like me are going to probably enjoy.
You could, I mean, that could also be Wild Horse 9, though. You never know.
I think it's both.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Well, on that, I think we should go into picture then. So I think we
Yeah.
should just talk through where we have, like, how we've broken down our 10 so far. Because the way I like to think of it really is just types of movies in the mix and really studios and distributors in the mix and how many players they might have, and really what the whole picture looks like. I know it's early to be thinking that way, but for example, like if I have someone that I think is going to win Best Actor, their movie's going to be here. If I have someone who I think is going to win Director, Actress, or Screenplay, their movie's going to be here. So I'm not going to list off all of the movies because we've talked about them really across screenplay and director for the most part. But I think, does everyone have just the Odyssey right now there? I think we can talk about though, you've I'm actually lower on Project Hail Mary as a
Yeah.
possibility anywhere. I don't have it really anywhere because I do feel that once the Odyssey came out and we have Dune coming out, I just feel like that kind of eliminates a need to remember and recognize that movie in a real way. And then you also have MGM Amazon, who over the years has been a bit difficult to pinpoint, right? How they're going to campaign a film. I mean, Licorice Pizza, I think was an MGM film that ended up not doing as well with Oscar nominations as it did at other places leading up to it, and that got in because it was Paul Thomas Anderson. Nickel Boys got in surprisingly right into
Barely.
picture, which was great, but like by the skin of its teeth. Now, Project Hail Mary is totally different than something like Nickel Boys or Women Talking or, After the Hunt or some of these other films that they've had. But how do you guys feel about like that trio of movies and how many of them can make it in? Because I don't think it's all three.
No, it's a glut of blockbusters, and it's very early Oscar predictions are fun, but they're also really funny because there were so many people that whatever March or April that were like, Project Hail Mary's going to get 13 nominations and it's a total winner. And that has disappeared. And it disappeared because a new shiny toy came in and took its place. And so, I mean, that's why early predictions are, you need to be a little unserious about them and
Sure.
not, putting your stamp on things that are just going to kind of make you look a little silly later. But yeah, I think, it can probably do okay with visual effects and sound and some below the line, but I'm not counting on it in Best Picture.
I think until I see a lot of these films, and I know you guys have the benefit of having seen a lot more than I have at Cannes. For me, until I see some of these other movies, I'm going to be a little bit more bullish on it. I do think, like you mentioned, the shiny new toy, the Odyssey, definitely takes from it, but I could see like a re-release in theaters, perhaps over the winter that maybe reinvigorates it. So I do have it still in, I think almost every or most of the above the line categories: picture, director, screenplay, actor. So I'm still pretty high on it in a lot of places, but a lot to see still, and sometimes it's the devil you know versus the devil you don't in predictions at this stage.
Yeah, I think it's in a like 9 or 10 spot, fighting to get back up. I agree with Sophia and Eric. I think that when you start breaking down a process of elimination and you look at just like the last couple of years, it's really, really tough for films to from the first half of the year to break through. And you have to have like a good mixture of a critical hit and the critics behind you, or audience and it being this overwhelming sensation, or a uh, in the case of like something like Sinners or Black Panther, be like a cultural event, or Get Out even. And I think that like 2 years ago we had three films get or 3 years ago, I'm sorry, we had three films that I would consider all in that criteria, and that was Barbie and Oppenheimer, because they were a package deal as this giant cinematic event, and Past Lives, which was the critical, sort of hit of the year. And that one barely got in. It was just screenplay and in the film, and that's it. And we've sort of the 2 years ago wasn't really the case. Last year was really Sinners, and I think that Nolan is just going to eat up that rock in Ryan Gosling and all of its attention. And then you have like The Invite, and then you have Project Hail Mary, which are great success stories, but are done from studios that are very inconsistent, like Sophia said. And I also think too, as much as the success story of uh, Project Hail Mary was, then Amazon took a massive just like kick in the pants with Masters of the Universe, like just a couple of months later.
So
And I'm not
bad.
saying that like that's but when you're trying to build
Mm.
out a narrative like Sinners did, like One Battle did, like the studio did last year, even with like a little bit of a misstep like Superman, they had a Conjuring film and they had Sinners do so extremely well that it blocked out all the noise. And it, and I think that movie is, it's Mark's right. It's like got like it probably has like an F1 quality to it, where like it's like a crowd pleaser, and it's going to be the feel good movie for people. But I mean, they could also find something on the festival circuit that they like a hell of a lot more. And because also too, like you just trust some of these artisans, even if it's like for example, even if you, let's say Dune does overperform, those are people that have been nominated and won before. Probably in Inarritu's people the same way. And no, we definitely know that with Nolan's. So like those are three spots, and then you start to like put the period pieces, put like Werewolf, or put in even like Sense and Sensibility, put all those pieces up and up against it, and then there's not even the contemporary stuff. Like I'm assuming the Bola Negra has a lot of production design and costumes and things of that nature that would probably totally,
The cinematography.
yeah, the
Oh,
cinematography, probably the editing,
I'll say
you
right
know,
now that after the Odyssey, La Bola Negra is the biggest directorial achievement of
yeah.
anything that I've seen.
And
mm.
like I said, still sight unseen with that, but I would totally agree with you there, Eric. And so Project Hail Mary, it's just like it seems like a maybe to a 3, 4, 5 nomination height for it. A couple tech categories,
Oh,
maybe screenplay, and Gosling's on the outside looking in, or maybe he gets in. And the puppeteer guys does a bunch of annoying interviews that I don't care about.
so
Like that's not going to happen, so we don't have to worry
um,
about that.
it made 700, nearly 700 million, and has a 95 Rotten Tomato score. You don't think that makes it pretty
Nothing else was out
safe
at the
bet at
time,
this
Mark.
stage?
Like, where's the cultural like relevance for that film? Where's the people still talking about it? Because nobody gives a shit now about it because of the Odyssey. So like that
Yeah, but
that's
don't
like
you think when
that's
you
the
think
thing
about
is like
so
Sinners had a run for 9 months of dominating the
yeah,
conversation.
I wouldn't say it's a Sinners, but I think it's not far behind. I think you have when I think of picture two, a lot of times what I'm thinking about is where's the support coming from? And with a movie like and this is I think part of why I have a hard time pulling out one of Odyssey, Dune, or Project Hail Mary, which I do expect to kind of replicate what we've seen the last couple of years and dominate a lot of the categories. It involves a lot of that behind the scene crafts work that I think will end up supporting it, along with where I think it struggles probably is the acting
Mm.
branch. It doesn't have a lot of roles in it, I guess, but I don't know. I guess I'm still just
I
bullish
mean,
on
I
it.
get
It
it
seems
is
like
a
a
site,
easy pick.
it's a site thing that you have seen, so I get
Hmm.
that.
Yeah, yeah, that's the hard
And
part, I guess.
Yeah.
so, but I will, yeah, I get that. I had another point, but I forgot it.
Well, we can come back to you if you think of it. But the other thing on that point, Mark, too, is like I'm also, I think, including La Bola Negra and possibly Digger in
Yeah,
that
right. Yeah,
conversation of like known artisans, really
right.
flashy, like people who I mean, not so much for La Bola Negra, but for Digger, like that's one that could come in and
Yeah,
really again disrupt things. And I am not a fan of Inarritu's movies, which is why I plan for the worst and hope for the best, I think, with that. So we'll see, but it definitely has me concerned. But I think, we also can talk about some that maybe won't be huge nomination leaders, but I think are very much in the conversation. We've talked about Fjord. I think that Fjord's ceiling is obviously lower than something like the Odyssey or La Bola Negra. But I think that that's a film where it could convert things to wins very easily because of how people responded to that. And it was interesting because I think critics at Cannes were not as high on Fjord. I think it was positive, but it wasn't like the big sensation of the festival. Um, but it won the Palm, and the Palm is
yeah.
it's a jury, but industry is on that jury, and I think it'll be something that people will be talking about. So we could see, potential acting nominations, international feature because it does qualify screenplay, director, and if you have those, that's one of those that can get into picture very easily, I think. So that's definitely high up on my list. It's for me right now,
Same.
like it's the same thing in director where like the Odyssey, Fjord, and La Bola Negra are my top three in both categories right now.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I have Fjord at my number one, and I have the Odyssey at number two, and I feel the split is going to happen. I can't justify it just yet, had good feelings about things over the last couple of years, so I feel like I can rest on my record. But I can also say that this Academy has done a good job of also, you know, I just feel like with Nolan, I don't know if this is necessarily a Best Picture winner just yet, but I feel like it is definitely a directorial win. I think that Fjord is when we saw it, and I think that can jury makeup, it feels right for a film that's going to get massively pushed and be a conversation piece throughout, especially as we're in a very important election season, and where, you know, the conversations about you know, extremism, or, you know, or politics are at their height, at their highest. I think that La Bola Negra is right there. I think that Behemoth is definitely one that I'm considering as well too, if we want something that's a big sort of sweeping Hollywood achievement. I mean, I beyond those, I really don't see yet a firm contender outside unseen. Because of the films that I have seen, like I don't think, you know, like I would, if Minotaur got in, like that would be like the nominations or the wins for it. Same for Fatherlands. A lot of the other stuff it can. Project Hail Mary's not winning Best Picture. That's not going to happen, not in a million years. Same with like The Invite, or even like, you know, people,
Dune.
Dune or Obsession. Well, no, I was just talking about things
Oh,
that we've seen. But like, you know, yeah,
oh
and then
God, Obsession.
no,
Yeah,
it's no.
no.
I'm just saying, like,
No.
those things aren't happening. I really, of the things seen, there's only really, you know, there's only really two, I think, that can, and then you know, the rest is I haven't seen the Bola Negra yet. Like I said, we weren't there the last day. If I did, we probably have a different conversation. I probably would be more in Erik's conversation, being like, "Are you're fucking insane? Like, this is probably
I
there."
feel like I'm gonna
Um,
love La Bola Negra, and I
yeah,
just don't want to set
You
myself up for
will.
it.
You
yeah,
will.
I'm really excited for it. I love,
Hmm.
I mean, the idea of like a big sort of swing. And I have yet to still see the trailer for it, because that's how excited I am. It's the thing that Erik says, like, just watch the trailer, and I'm like, no, I don't. I want to savor that moment of when I see it at Telluride, and it'll totally be there. But um, yeah, for weirdly like this wide open nomination, when you then start thinking about like, okay, what could win? I actually think like and we're not fully there yet because it's still full season, but like in my head, I'm like, I don't know if there's many that could. And maybe that's a little bit of the Odyssey, because we're in this wave right now. This is the only thing people are talking about, literally in my office, literally in my family, literally everyone's like, and then they're all looking to me and like, do you love it? And I'm like, you know, so it's a little bit of like, this is dominating a conversation, and it'll be interesting to see how the rest of the summer goes for the next couple of weeks. But yeah, it's going to be a very interesting Telluride, because we're going to have a lot of premieres there, and it's going to tell us a lot. But it does feel like a little bit also of like, while I do have a split, I might just end up putting the Odyssey back into number one. And it might be like 3 years ago, where it's like it was over before it even began, which I hope not, because I was really hoping that this would be a more of a wide open year, and I thought we were kind of done with that, but it doesn't seem like Hollywood's done with that yet. Because there's still like the nomination records on the board. Like that's something to consider with that film. And I don't, you know, I kind of settled on it being like probably more likely 13, 14. But if they love it, and God, last year they loved Sinners, you know, and you know, they went all in on it, and they could very well do that here again.
Hmm.
You talk about parody, you know, they just love
Yeah,
something, it just happens in
yeah.
every category.
And I mean, the Odyssey right now is performing better with critics and audiences than Oppenheimer did, which is just crazy to me. Like it's really surprising, just on both fronts. Not so much audiences, but critics. Yes.
Yeah,
Um,
critics for sure.
Erik, yeah, Erik, what do you think? Why is it La Bola Negra?
I mean, I'm looking at my last months, and we're already at the very end of July, and I haven't even done my July predictions yet. And I had La Bola Negra at number two. It's going to stay there. Fjord is going to rise. So what I'm kind of thinking about with the Cannes to Oscar path is obviously we've seen how strong it is the last couple of years, this whole decade, but specifically with non-English language films, there's a big difference between some versus others. It was just an accident, won the palm, but it wasn't enough to get it into anything other than original screenplay, because it was Secret Agent and Sentimental Value that were the real players, not only with acting, but having the editing nomination for Sentimental and the casting nomination for Secret Agent. Those are the real building blocks, those two categories. And we're only 1 year into casting, but those two categories are so crucial, less for, something like the Odyssey or Wild Horse 9 or something with a big cast, but for those non-English language films coming over from Cannes, whether or not they have recognizable stars in them. Those are the types of categories and films that really are going to stand out. So if we're looking at La Bola Negra and Minotaur and Fatherland and Fjord, I don't think all of those can make it into Best Picture. But the two strongest ones that are going to be able to be populated in at least one or both of those categories, those are going to be the players, and they're going to stand out outside of the other ones quite a bit, which is why really it's Fjord and the Bola Negra.
Yeah. I think just before we wrap up, just some other movies that, could make it in that we've just talked about here and there. I'm curious about Artificial, what's happening with that. I think the topic of AI being what it is, the debut, the invite, Primetime. There's so many movies. Those are all A24. What's happening with Focus Features? And, what can they get in here? Is it Elsinore, Sense and Sensibility, Werewolf, Obsession? And another movie that's one of the biggest movies of the year, whether we like it or not, is Michael. So I am, wondering where that can be. I mean, Mark, you mentioned I Play Rocky, but Michael to me is right in that same zone
Yeah.
for sure.
This is my obsession. We can't do this. This is like even worse than Bohemian Rhapsody. If this gets in, it would be a disaster of epic proportions. We have had a great run. Now, Sophia and I, we were very much on the one battle train, and we knew consequences would come down the road. I didn't think it was be the Michael Jackson biopic in an award
Or
season
Obsession for me. Yeah,
but you take the good with the bad, and there you got it.
I guess so.
But I agree. It'll definitely be nominated for the Golden Globe Box Office Achievement Award because it made $1 billion and it's the highest grossing biopic of all time. Will the nose play for Coleman Domingo? We'll see. And will the the nephew of Michael Jackson, Jafar Jackson, will he get into the actor conversation? He's definitely got to be in your top 10. But like technically speaking, who knows? I mean, like editing, production design, stuff like that would be what's its max day. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
I'm just bringing it up as a, something that could be lurking just to keep in mind.
I mean, if it was Michael Jackson, it would be lurking. Now, wouldn't it?
His story continues.
Did you mention Social Reckoning? Oh.
No, I didn't. Maybe I left it on purpose.
But
maybe not. I don't know.
Maybe.
But you're right.
That's another one to keep an eye on. I mean,
but also speaking, I mean, you're talking about Michael. That is yet another blockbuster, and
first half of the year too,
and first half of the year. So I think if you're looking as a voter at these other films that are clearly highly regarded and box office successes, Michael's probably not going to be really high on that list. It's not. I don't think it's in the same place as Bohemian Rhapsody, but that was also specific of its time. Every year is different.
I know.
And there's absolutely a case where Jafar Jackson and or Coleman Domingo make it in, and the film doesn't. But that's, we're going to be doing acting later. But I
Yeah,
feel like Michael's further on the outside than it is on the in.
I think so too. Yeah.
I
I
mean,
think, oh,
Oh, no. Sorry. Go,
Although we
Sophia.
don't have a lot of biopics on
uh-huh.
this list.
We don't have a lot of
Elsinore.
we don't have a lot of biopics,
Yeah.
and we also, I mean, Eric, you mentioned this as well about, female representation behind the camera, but a lot of of people of color behind the camera as well too, and in front of the screen. So like this those performances were celebrated even when the film was not. So like all the negative opinions about Michael aside, that performance was hailed as one of the best, even though I firmly disagree with those claims, and I think it's pretty terrible. Like, regardless of that, it doesn't matter. We've seen far worse in these categories get nominated. And so
Hmm.
I mean, Sophia's right. Like that's to bring it up, even though oh
Yeah.
God, the thought of it, but to make the point about the social or social reckoning, don't want to say the Social Network because that's a good movie, but I will say this is that we have to look at Aaron Sorkin's track record, and regardless of how that trailer looks, the being the Ricardos, Trial of Chicago 7, back to back, just like gut punches of like we all, shit on being the Ricardos, and it landed those 3 Oscar nominations, and then Trial of Chicago 7 was like for most of that season the runner up or in top 5 placement, and while he didn't make director, it was nominated across the board and won SAG Ensemble. So
Yep.
it
Yeah.
is definitely something to consider in a 10, because that feeds like that feeds the marks, the meat and potato people, you know what I mean, of the Academy, like easily. And
It
does
does,
that
but it's
count?
at a huge disadvantage by the Social Network even existing. The thing about
Hmm.
being the Ricardos is that it had 3 Oscar winners in it, and it was just a
Sure.
bland, bad biopic. So
Again,
I
that
think what the
didn't
Social
matter.
Reckoning had, yeah,
It
but it's
didn't.
not the same. But it's not the same.
No, I know, but you know what? Sometimes we have to. I'm just saying is that he's been dinged before, and we're like, oh, this is bad, and da 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 this and da 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 that, and he still got in. Even looking at something like Steve Jobs, which is like, oh, he's doing a script and it's directed by an elevated director and it's a biopic and da 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 da, and it feels like the same thing, and that still
A
got
lot of da 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 da
screenplay.
da going on.
Yeah, exactly. And those
I
da
don't
da
think
da da
I've ever
does are
said da 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 da
Oscar
da.
nomination, Oscar nomination, Oscar nomination. And so that's what I'm saying is that, like, regardless of what you think, maybe and there's definitely going to be comparisons to it. They fucking love him. And so if we're gonna ding Inarritu for how that movie looks and still be like cautiously it could happen, we have to do the same with Aaron Sorkin.
I wouldn't go that far.
Well,
How many
lots
wins
of
does he have?
people.
He's got a bunch of wins, more than a lot of these people that we've talked about today.
His one.
Yes, doesn't he have 2?
He just has one
Is
His
this the
screenplay.
one.
one? Oh, it sounds like he's ready for 2.
Oh, God. Well, on that note, quick around the horn, who are you predicting? What are you predicting to win Best Picture as of today? Because here we go by year in advance predictions, not end of the season predictions to see your accuracy. We'll do this. Last year at this time, I was predicting one battle after another to
Oh,
win Best Picture.
Sophia, last year at this time, I was predicting one battle after another. What a coincidence. What
I
were
don't
you
even
guys
remember what I
predicting
was.
at this time?
I don't even remember what I was predicting at this time last
Sophia,
year.
pull up the stat. Do you have
I
Mark's
decided to
stats?
look in advance. Mark, you were
Yeah.
predicting Begonia,
Mm.
and Eric, I think you had Sentimental Value.
Yeah, I think
Right.
so. I stuck with
Nominees
Which
at
was
least,
good.
right?
post can for all
I'm
of
surprised,
summer.
Eric, it wasn't Hamnet. Honestly,
I never had it at number 1.
that's crazy for you.
That's
But
good for your favorite to not go into
Yeah.
number
You know
one.
what?
It's smart.
I'm proud of you, Eric. Proud of you.
Anyway, what are you predicting this year?
Well, that's not happening this time because I'm gonna say La Bola Negra.
You think the Netflix bias is going to break finally?
I'm having fun. It's July 23rd.
I also think it almost did with Emilia Perez, so it's getting closer.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but that Carla Sophia.
As long as there's no Carla, in this group,
Might
then
want to
they
might want to
they
check
should be
that.
good.
Might want to check
Bingo.
that all the social media accounts for those actors. You know,
Mark,
Mark.
who do you have?
I went wire to wire with Nolan in 2023 for Oppenheimer, and I have a feeling I'm going to be doing the same with the Odyssey.
Ryan? Are you sticking with Fjord or are you going Odyssey?
I'm gonna go with Fjord. I think that going small this year is actually better than going big. Usually, when an academy goes big, then they go small, and I think Fjord's the right topic button film for them to, and it's going to have the acting noms, and I think it'll have an editing nom, and it'll pull like a Nora kind of haul. It'll pull something like that where it's not in terms of nominations, and then for its wins, screenplay, you know, maybe an actor win, director, picture, editing, something like that. Maybe it
Mhm.
upsets the Odyssey. Maybe we're looking at Nolan wins the director and Fjord wins picture. Who knows? I think that it could definitely happen. I'm not willing to count anything out as of now, and
I
I'm
will
not willing to.
discount a split
Well, it ain't
always,
gonna be with your
unless
film. I can
unless some unless
guarantee that.
something crazy
Something has to
happens.
happen. Yeah.
I think it's
Well,
gonna be. I think it's gonna be a crazy year, and I think the politics of the year is going to dictate this race. And I
There
think
is,
the
but look at how many films are very politically driven this year. There's going to be
sure,
a lot.
but
And
I
then
think
whatever
this.
does actually happen in the
mhm.
midterms, if we even have a country left,
Oh,
we'll
yeah,
see.
Yeah.
yeah. But I
That's
think
why
I
I'm oh,
I think the palm's just going to help it also too. Sorry, Sophia.
that's why I'm going with the Odyssey. I think you have people who are watching it also who are comparing it actually right now to our current political situation. The ending of the movie, whether that's what Nolan intended to make or not, people are going to make those comparisons. I have, seen just now as more people are seeing it too, number of authors, filmmakers, people start to talk about it and directly comparing it to quote ICE and Trump's America. So,
And then how I saw it when we were talked about it last week on Director Watch, but then there's been videos about Odysseus and reflections on genocide, and
yep,
that's very
exactly.
topical. And so,
hmm Yeah.
yeah, it's
So
it's gonna
I'm
it's gonna be there.
Yeah, I'm thinking of it really. I mean, it is just like it's the current front runner, I think, but it's so early. Anything could happen still. I'm excited to
Oh
see
yeah.
all of these movies and to go to Telluride soon. So we'll talk about that at some point. But I think this was a really fun first award season predictions podcast. Thank you all. Mark, if you could tell everyone where they can find you and your work.
At Mark Likes Movies on the Twitter and at Awards Watch and the Contending.
Great. And Ryan?
You can find all my work here at awardswatch.com, podcasts, listen to Director Watch. We start the Jane Campion series tomorrow. So look forward to that. And then go over to the website. I have my review for the Odyssey that's up if you want to read that. And then please don't send me your hate for that. I didn't call it a masterpiece. And then I also wrote a piece this week breaking down the nomination chances and realistic chance for the Odyssey to break the all-time record.
Cool.
It's over at awardswatch.com.
And Eric?
Yes, obviously awardswatch.com. We'll have a lot of fun Emmy stuff coming up, as well as the month ahead of Telluride, Toronto, and the fall festivals. On socials, I'm at AwardsWatch Eric on Twitter and Instagram and Threads, but I don't post there. It just automatically cross posts. So if you ever reply to me on there and I don't say anything, it's don't take it personally. I just don't go there.
Yeah.
Great. And you can find me on Twitter at Sophia_Sim, Letterboxd and Blue Sky at Sophia Sim. You can find my writing, reviews, interviews at Awards Watch. And while you're there on awardswatch.com, sign up for the newsletter where you can get all of our updates on podcasts, reviews, interviews, and more coverage as we head into a busy season. Thanks, everyone. Ciao.